What's the Latin verse up there, Stafford?
You want me to read Latin?
Well, I figured you did.
Ovid pedis hic est animus.
Be careful what you're saying.
That's it.
Yeah.
Non deficit. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Run it through Google Translate.
Anybody want to buy a picture?
What are we selling, Mayor Beamish?
I got pack all these things.
I offered you storage space.
Yeah, well, maybe general.
You're moving to Lower, eh?
That's right. Yes, Martin Road. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll be seeing a lot more of you.
Possibly. Be walking around. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I have my computer shows 1 minute, so I don't know how everybody else is looking.
I have 529.
Okay. See, we have all of council here, so it's good. There she is. Welcome back. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Andrade. Yeah.
I should have put my nice outfit, sorry.
I saw them with their suit and tie and I thought, oh geez, I better step on my
Looks
game.
really good.
Put a tie on. Yeah.
I mean, it's too hot for me to put anything on top anyhow.
Okay, we just wait till the clock hits the 1/2 and
I thought it was at 5 p.m. So I was trying.
let me know if my mic goes bad. I have trouble sometimes. Corporate officer, are we ready to go?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome. I'd like to call this public hearing to order at 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, October 6, 2020. The meeting is being held electronically as authorized by Ministerial Order number M192, Local Government Meetings and Bylaw Process, COVID-19 Order number 3. Public hearing is being held to consider zoning amendment bylaw number 1065-54 and official community plan amendment number 985-25-2020 to include properties fronting Davis Road and Poplar Lane within the Garden Suite area. I acknowledge that this evening we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. I will now introduce council members present this evening. Councillor and Deputy Mayor Larry Ladwig, Councillor Anne-Marie DeAndrade, Councillor David Kroll, and Councillor Stafford Lumley. I am Mayor Bill Beamish and Chair of this evening's proceedings. All persons who believe their interests are affected by the proposed bylaws shall be given an opportunity to be heard on, turn the page here, on the matters contained in the proposed bylaws, or to submit their written submissions to the corporate officer before tonight's hearing is adjourned. Under the Local Government Act, the chair of a public hearing is entitled to make procedural rules for the conduct of the public hearing. For this public hearing, we will use the following protocol. Persons wishing to speak during the public hearing are invited to use the raise hand feature by clicking on the hand icon found at the bottom of your screen. The meeting administrator will then add you to the speakers list and you will be able to unmute and turn on your video when it is your time to speak. Please identify yourself clearly, stating your name and residential address before beginning to address council. Speakers are allowed up to 5 minutes to make their presentation and may not transfer all or any part of their allotted time to another speaker. Members of council are present to hear your submissions and not to answer questions or debate the merits of the bylaw under consideration. Council members may ask for clarification from members of the public after their submissions, and I would ask them to do this through me as well. Persons wishing to speak a second time may do so only after all other persons wishing to speak have been provided the opportunity to speak for a first time. Persons speaking a second time will be limited to 3 minutes. A written submission may be submitted by email to clerk@gibsons.ca in lieu of speaking, provided it is received prior to the close of the public hearing. All written submissions will be circulated to council and will become part of the public record. I will now introduce Leslie Ann Statz, the Director of Planning, who will introduce the proposed zoning amendment bylaw and official community plan bylaw amendments. Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to share my screen. I've got a short presentation. Okay, so this is a presentation to introduce the Davis Road and Poplar Lane area OCP and zoning amendment. In January this year, Council directed staff to prepare bylaw amendments to change the OCP land use designation and expand the garden suite area to the Davis Road and Poplar Lane area for the purpose of allowing each property to have up to 3 dwelling units within a single family dwelling, as well as a garden suite. The OCP designation is medium density residential and would be changed to multi-unit residential special character, which reduces the density. This change is required to allow a 3-family dwelling and a garden suite on each property. The form and character development permit area would also change from development permit area number 4, which is intended for multi-family development projects, to development permit area number 8, which is intended for intensive residential and infill development and garden suites. This area is very walkable to the Upper Gibsons commercial corridor, is near public transportation, and is in a centralized location. And therefore the town initiated this process to consider this type of gentle infill housing in this area. So this slide here shows the OCP map, the area where the OCP land use would be changed, and then the zoning map where the zoning would be changed. So this slide here compares the OCP land use, the existing designation, and then the proposed designation. As you can see, the existing designation is medium density residential, and it permits multi-unit residential buildings, so apartments and condominiums greater than 3 stories. And the bylaw before us would amend that land use to a multi-unit residential special character, which permits single detached dwellings and multiple unit residential in a single detached building form. Under the current medium density land use designation, it requires properties to amalgamate to build in accordance with the OCP. This change in land use designation allows an expansion to the uses that are currently in place, as you'll see in the next slide, but it also allows added density without having to amalgamate properties. So this slide shows the zone comparison. The existing zone is R2. It permits single family dwelling and a few accessory uses. In the proposed zone, it's an RM7 zone, and that would allow single family dwelling, a duplex, a three family dwelling, and a garden suite. So those are some added changes. The zoning amendment, this slide basically shows the blue that would be the change in the uses. So in terms of readings and next steps, the bylaws were given first reading on March 3rd, second reading on September 15th, and a resolution to hold tonight's public hearing was made on September 15th. The notice of public hearing was advertised in the Coast Reporter on September 25th and October 2nd. In terms of next steps, Council will consider a third reading of these bylaws at tonight's council meeting after this public hearing. And at that meeting, the decision would be to pass third reading, to alter the bylaws, or to defeat the bylaws. Prior to adoption, the Ministry of Transportation must approve the bylaw. And then following the ministry's approval, council may consider the final reading, which would be adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does council have any questions for the Director of Planning as per that presentation? I have one, Director of Planning. Is the under the current OCP, it's allowed to be a multi-story or up to 3-story development with amalgamated lots?
That's right. So under the current medium density residential, it's intended for greater than 3 stories.
Okay.
Is the way it's written.
So it could be, there could be several families living in the area, and this, in effect, reduced it to a smaller density in the neighborhood.
That's right.
Yeah. If they were to develop a multifamily units in there, would the developer be required to do frontage improvements?
They would, yes.
If they just develop a duplex or expand inside the current residence, put a garden suite, are they required to do frontage changes?
That is a good question. I believe they still are. It hasn't changed the road standard in any way. So the road standard remains the same. So whether it's an increase to an apartment versus a duplex, if there is a change in use, that triggers the DCC and the frontage requirements.
Okay, thank you. Does that lead to any other questions by council? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I will now ask the corporate officer, Lindsay Grist, to note and present any written submissions received to date regarding the proposed zoning and official community plan amendment bylaws.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. There were 4 written submissions received from 3 individuals in opposition of the proposed bylaws. These submissions were included in the agenda published after 9 a.m. on October 5th, 2020. There were 3 additional written submissions received relating to the proposed bylaws after preparing the agenda, and I will read those now. The first submission is from William Baker, and he writes, "Dear Mayor and Council, I am writing to oppose the rezoning of Davis Road and Poplar Lane at this time. My reasons are as follows. A housing study is underway but not yet received. I would prefer to have the study completed and the data available to Council prior to making zoning decisions that could have a significant impact on these neighborhoods. Lack of real consultation. There has not been any opportunity to engage in serious and meaningful consultation with these neighborhoods. Does Council know who lives in these areas? Has a mini study been done? Are they seniors, renters, investors, families, or singles? This is a small enough area that a survey could take just a few days and provide Council with a meaningful understanding of the composition of these neighborhoods and how our rezoning will affect them. The limited few I spoke to didn't know about a rezoning nor the effects on their neighborhood. Why the rush? There are already hundreds of new developments, units approved and proceeding in the town. Do we really need to burden our limited town resources with additional applications once this rezoning is approved? This is not an application for rezoning that is coming from a citizen or developer. It was proposed by town staff, and perhaps it could be put on hold while we see what the results of some of the already approved applications are. Increased tax burden on our current residents. The rezoning will most likely result in an increase in the assessed values of the properties. This could result in an increase in taxes for the existing residents, which would affect seniors on a fixed pension and potentially result in landlords having to increase rents to existing renters who live in those areas. Neighborhood destruction. Over time, the character of the neighborhood will change dramatically with investors, developers purchasing homes, tearing them down, and creating market rental triplexes along those streets. The small neighborly community will cease to exist. There is no ability to create affordable housing units from this rezoning plan. Increasing rental stock doesn't necessarily reduce rents, and since newly created units tend to be expensive, it's likely rents in the area will increase. Town infrastructure limitations. With all the existing developments and the many that are soon to be coming, we need to examine the ability of Gibsons to accommodate the ever-increasing units. This is particularly important with respect to water capacity. Prior to rezoning to increase density, I strongly suggest and request an updated peer-reviewed water study. We appear to be getting close to the maximum capacity with existing approved developments and a few extra waiting in the wings. Why add this extra burden before knowing what the water situation truly is? I urge council to set this amendment aside for now. It can always be brought back at another time when we are much more informed regarding some of the important issues surrounding town growth. Respectfully submitted, William Baker, Ocean Mount Boulevard, Gibsons. The next submission is from Jean Knudsen, and simply writes that they realize the submission date has passed, but they would like council to know they are for the amendment. And the final submission is from Des Delaney. Dear Mayor and Council, please reconsider the rezoning of Davis Road and Poplar Lane for the following reasons. The residents on these streets were not consulted or asked for their input on the potential destruction of their neighborhood that will result from this rezoning. Rezoning to greater density makes the land more valuable and thus drives up the prices for houses in the area. With rising prices, there is also a corresponding increase in taxes, which makes it less affordable for homeowners and is passed on as rent increases for the rental properties in this area as well. It is ironic that with the publication of a housing needs assessment, which addresses this, that this action will actually make the problem worse for the 40 households in this area. Any new housing built in this area on the rezoning will be too expensive for the average resident in Gibsons based on the housing needs assessment. A single family dwelling with a suite is currently assessed at $809,000 according to this document. This would put the price of a triplex plus garden suite into the $2 million plus price range. New build projects are currently being sold in the 600 square foot range, so 3 100 square foot suites plus 800 square foot laneway house is $2.4 million. The 1,000 square foot residences would cost $600,000, which is again not in the affordable range identified in the assessment. If this rezoning is applied to this area of Gibsons, then what is stopping the rest of Gibsons being subject to the same arbitrary action? I do not think that the deliberate destruction of the existing neighborhood communities is the intention of the bylaw, but it does not appear to fit into any other cohesive agenda in its current format. Yours sincerely, Des Delaney, Wildwood Crescent, Gibsons. As noted, individuals may choose to forward written submissions via email to clerk@gibsons.ca up to the close of the hearing. Those submissions will be collated at adjournment and added to the agenda for consideration.
Thank you. We'll now seek public input, and I'm going to ask this question 3 times. So first time, is there anybody wishing to speak for or against proposed zoning or official community amendment plan bylaw?
And we do have one, Mr. Mayor, just one moment.
Thank you. Sheila Smith, I see your name up.
Okay, I'm working on it here.
Okay, good. It's not Sheila, it doesn't sound like.
No, Sheila's my wife.
Okay, can you just tell us who you are and where you are located?
Yes, my name is Bill Newland. Sheila and I reside at 903 Davis Road. It's a house that we purchased about 3 years ago, and had done to extensive renovations on it with the idea that we're on a fixed income. Both of us are retired. We are looking at spending our rest of our lives in this place right now. We were attracted to the area of the street. Poplar Lane is the way we walk our dog to go to the park. It's a wonderful neighborhood. There's a lot of things that, and I haven't, be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to go ahead and fully investigate what everything is being said as far as this bylaw or change of the community plan goes. It bothers me a little bit that this is all seemed to be stemmed from a one unit, one house down the road from us that was denied a building permit for this very reason, and went ahead and did it anyways, got caught, and spurred this whole thing to have this amendment read. I was not against or trying to punish anybody for it, but to have the idea that we have a multifamily use, multifamily buildings going up next to us down the road and this sort of thing is a little disturbing given how much money we put into the property, the renovations that we've done. Not to even mention the increased tax burden, which our assessment was at 693 this year, which was totally out of the picture as far as I can see. However, that being said, I expect it to even rise, and so should everybody else on the street. I was briefly able to see the screen as far as the SFR, the square foot ratio. And it looks to me as though to go to 50% is probably a reasonable number. However, you know, the 3-story thing and having multifamily condos, getting back to my point that one house created this whole situation. My concern is that if a developer, as was Bill mentioned, was to buy 2 or 3 houses or house along this street or on Popular Lane, that now he could go ahead and basically control the entire street, kind of like a multi-land grab use, and that bothers me. Have you guys talked about or addressed this in any manner?
Can I just take you back to the planner, and I believe she's still online. Just clarify a couple of points for you. That under the current zoning as exists today, somebody could buy up those properties and build a 3-story building.
Three-story house. Yeah.
3-story. There's a planner there now, so let her speak. She's much more adept than I am.
Thank you, Mayor. So as it stands now, the zoning for the property is R2, so it only allows single family dwelling. Under the OCP, the official community plan designation, it envisions greater than 3-story apartments along Davis and Poplar roads. So under the existing land use designation, a developer could come and purchase a few lots, amalgamate them, and then apply to rezone the property consistent with the OCP. And so for that reason, there would be a strong reason for staff to support it. What this zoning amendment does is it brings down that density. So it's no longer greater than 3-story apartments. It brings it down to a single detached building form to allow a little bit more density. So it would allow the expansion of the garden suite area to those properties. It would allow a duplex in addition to a single family or a 3-family dwelling. So it just provides a bit more diversity in the existing building form instead of a much higher density as envisioned in the community plan.
Okay.
So it's moving off the higher density. In other words,
Moving away from the 3-story situation.
that's correct. Yes, that's what this zoning is to do. And if I could correct you as well, I don't recall that this was caused by somebody who refused a building permit. It was caused by somebody did apply for this rezoning, and that rezoning was approved for their property. And then the idea was, well, maybe we should look at rezoning the whole area. And it actually was suggested by others that we should, instead of dealing with the one property, we should deal with all of the properties at the same time. But because the one property had applied, we dealt with that property and then looked at doing the bigger picture.
Okay. That may be a situation. In fact, I was actually in favor of, if they were to change that zoning on that particular house,
Yeah.
that things were to be changed for all houses. So in that, we're on the same picture there.
Right, yeah.
My
Okay.
understanding, however, is a little different, is that and maybe you could check on this, Mayor, but I've heard that the house was had a garage that converted to another suite. There was an incident, a medical incident that resulted in an inspection and a discovery of this illegal suite in the back. And at that point, they had to apply for the rezoning. So I'm not, again, this is just information I've heard from residents on the street.
Yeah.
Maybe you could clarify that for me.
I don't know anything about that because council wouldn't be aware of that background. So,
Okay, well, the point I guess I'm making is that one house can create it. You've already established a developer could buy 3 lots and make it happen. So,
that could happen today, yes.
yes, okay.
But it couldn't happen afterwards, after this rezoning.
So there would be no subsequential community plan changes then?
No, what changes now is we're changing both the OCP and the zoning to allow for the 3 unit plus garden suite, as opposed to what exists today. The OCP allows for the apartments and condos. So
Okay.
somebody could purchase houses and in good faith, come to the town, apply for rezoning because the OCP allows that to happen.
Okay, well, yeah, just like we were, we came into town and did basically the same thing 3 years ago. I came back to town. I absolutely love it here and to spend the rest of my life. I'm sorry I ever moved away. So again, I would say I would continually support this. I would like to see, some input from my neighbors. And so far, I don't see that we've seen that.
Did you receive a notice of the rezoning?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and we.
And all of your neighbors did.
903.
Yeah, all of the homes in the area did as well. So that
Yeah.
everybody received. So the suggestion that nobody was informed, they were all informed.
No. In fact, I've talked to my neighbors about that, but
Yes.
I was wondering if maybe perhaps I think one of the people that the letters that were read, submissions, that there was maybe it would benefit the council by actually having some feedback. It's not 2 big streets.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would guess there's maybe
So,
35 to 40 units involved.
This is a process, so for getting that feedback is that holding a public hearing, inviting people to make submissions and to submit information to the town so the council can consider that. That's the process that the legislation we work under requires us to do. And then so everybody is notified. Everybody's notified of the date and time of the hearing and invited to submit either written submissions or to, like you have, come before us at the hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. And I realize there has to be some restrictions. And in order to get, I don't know, I guess the feedback that to fully anticipate and understand where the residents of these units right now, a lot of people don't have computer savvy. A lot of people perhaps don't, want to get out and make comments. Knock on the door might not be a bad idea.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Corporate officer, is anybody else? Mr. Baker? You're still muted, Mr. Baker.
Okay, now I'm unmuted.
Thank you.
William Baker, 833 Ocean Mountain Boulevard in Gibsons. And I did want to pick up on this issue of the consultation with the neighbors. I mean, this council was elected on the basis of we will do meaningful consultation. With all due respect to the Local Government Act and the process, I frankly think it sucks. It's not meaningful communication. It's a process, and a lot of people are intimidated by this process. And it's also a very stilted process. I mean, a public hearing is a one-way dialogue. It's not a discussion, it's not a conversation. And what I was hoping that this council would do in situations like this would be to get out and discuss this with the people who are going to be significantly impacted by a rezoning. Ultimately, the neighborhood may say, hey, yeah, we like this better than the alternative. But I just don't think that the neighborhood really understands what is going on or understands what the impact of this rezoning could be. We're also overdue for an OCP change. And in an OCP change, one might look at these neighborhoods and suggest that, in fact, the OCP category here might have to be changed. At any rate, my message to you is, why do we need to rush this through? What is the urgency? Could we please just put it on hold, take a step back? I mean, we've got lots and lots on the plate of our council or our staff resources. And that would perhaps provide some time to actually talk to some of the people in the neighborhoods and find out what they know or what they don't know. Anyway, my overall message is, I think more meaningful consultation would be in order before this zoning gets passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Baker, can I ask, are you speaking on behalf of the Ocean Mount Community Association or yourself?
We have provided input from the Ocean Mount Community Association already. I was speaking tonight as an individual taxpayer.
And do I recall this spring that you had actually recommended we proceed in this way with a broad rezoning as opposed to an individual rezoning?
No, we had recommended that there be a hold put on this until we had a proper opportunity for consultation.
Good. Okay, but thank you.
Okay.
At this time, Mr. Mayor, I'm not seeing any other raised hands.
Okay, I'll ask a second time then. Sorry.
I'm always right when I say that. This
Okay,
one.
yeah, it happens. Yeah. Mr. Delaney.
Yes, just wanted to add on to my written submission. I think it starts to get a bit dangerous when council sort of goes in and rezones a large amount of private property without the owners of that private property requesting it. With the current zoning, if you get an amalgamation and put forward and do a proposal, public hearing, that's fine. But in this case, it's sort of, I think, unfairly to these people just blanketly rezoning their properties without any real major benefits or anything that could come from it. There doesn't seem to be an upside. There definitely seems to be a downside. I mean, if the current house that was there that applied for that zoning just for one property, then maybe that's the way to do it, property by property, instead of just giving it a blanket one, because you can see with those numbers I put there, this becomes very attractive to a single developer. Someone from Vancouver could come over and buy a lot there for $650, and you saw the numbers, there's a potential upside of $2.5 million. So, I don't think that's what this community wants to attract that. I don't think we want to speed up development. I don't think we need to speed up raising prices. We should be trying to find ways to somehow rein this, runaway development that seems to be going on when you add up all the properties right now that, are submitting. And it's just, these are 40 units that, maybe we don't need to focus on those. Maybe there's other areas. So That's sort of my only comment. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, corporate officer, that's
At this time, Mr. Mayor, I'm not seeing any further raised hands.
I will ask a second time then again, is there any further comments? And I'll ask a third time, are there any further comments? Anybody wishing to speak? So I'll now ask the corporate officer, Lindsay Grist, to note and present any written submissions received during this public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just flip my camera around. Thank you, Mayor Beamish. There were no additional written submissions received during this public hearing.
Okay, well, thank everybody for attending. Thank you for participating. There being no further input, I will adjourn this public hearing and thank you for your attendance. Have a good evening, and to council, I'll see you at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much.